What's going on, y'all? Today I'm going to share with you one of my workouts. I want to break this down, share my thought process and reasoning behind it. So, going over things like my exercise selection, the different sections that I have in my training, the benefits of these sections, and kind of just why I do things the way I do it. Sharing a lot of good little tidbits of information, with the goal of this video being hopefully to help you and share some insights and ideas for you to take to be able to design better training programs for yourself. That way you can continue to keep on improving on the results and the hard work that you guys are already putting into your training so you can get stronger and move better. Because get stronger, move better, be all super swollen sexy, that's the goal. All right, my workouts. These can be broken down into a couple of different sections. First one being something like this isometric holds here, light intensity bodyweight exercise, light cardio, some jump rope, something to help get the blood flow going. That'll be the first exercise that I typically do, followed by core training and then balance work after that. That's going to be my warm-up, is those three different types of exercise. After that, I'll go into I'll go into plyometrics and speed and agility work. Today I'm not doing that, so you won't see that in this video. And then finally, my last section would be strength training. Now, my warm-up, so this exercise, my core work, and the balance work, typically I do that as a vertical load. If you don't know what a vertical load is, it's basically just a circuit. So I'm going exercise 1, 2, 3, 4, take a break, and then I repeat. In this video, as you can see with the camera switch, I'm going exercise 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. It just made more sense editing wise to do it this way so I could spend more time on each section without having to jump back and forth. Alright, now my strength training section. I do that as a horizontal load because the exercises in my strength training section are much more intense up front, and then as the workout comes near its end, the exercises get less and less intense. So those are two different ways that you could structure your training depending on your goals. You could use a horizontal load or a vertical load. These IYTA holds, today's back day for me. So again, this is a warm-up, getting blood flow going to my body, helping to prepare my muscles for the more intense lifts coming up. Isometrics, I think, are one of the best ways to warm up with. In this case, I'm using them as a way to improve my shoulder mobility and getting blood flow into my back. So doing isometrics at different positions like you're seeing here, this is excellent for taking your shoulder through a full range of motion. Not only is this going to train the specific angle that I'm holding the isometric at, there is carryover above and below that position as well. So with these 4 different positions, I'm effectively taking my shoulders through their full range of motion and also engaging the muscles in my back as well, my traps, my lats, my rhomboids, posterior delts, all of that. So getting me ready for that. Okay, core training is going to be next. Today is anti-core training, so I'm working anti-flexion, anti-lateral flexion, anti-rotation. If you're unfamiliar with anti-core training, I have a video that I did where I talk about the anti-core training. Link will be in the comments or in the description, so feel free to check that out. So these Superman planks, I'm working my abs, my glutes, but also my lats as well with how I'm positioning myself and how I'm setting up with this exercise. So building core control and strength from this more extended position, same idea as the isometrics, holding these different positions to be able to learn how to engage and contract my abs in different positions and towards my end ranges of motion through different ranges. You know, it's very important to have total control over your muscles at all ranges of motion if you want to gain total mastery over your movement. Then we have, after the Superman planks, we have the I don't knows with the tidal tank, because I don't knows, I just made this exercise up, but it's an anti-everything exercise. anti-flexion, anti-extension, anti-lateral flexion, anti-lateral extension, anti-rotation. Okay, now, the idea behind this is not letting the weight fold me as the weight shifts. So as you can see here with the tidal tank, the water shifts to one side, making it heavier towards that end position, which really forces me to use all of my muscles throughout my body to be able to stand up tall, or kneel up tall, if you will, and not let the weight pull me. So having to use my abs, my glutes, my obliques, my legs, everything. Your core, it is designed to move in so many different ways. I have all the antis that I mentioned, and then you have the non-antis of that. So flexion, extension, lateral extension, rotation. The antis is how well you can resist those types of movements. And not only being able to resist at one angle, but you should have the control and strength to resist through all ranges of motion. That's where training these different angles comes into play. You see a lot of talk about rotation. Everyone talks about rotation online, at least that's what I see, like it's the end-all be-all of core training. And I do agree that it's very, very important for power and athletic ability, but there's a time and a place for all of the different types of core movement that you do. And sometimes you don't have to do rotation. Sometimes you have to resist rotation depending on the application. It's a myopic view, in my opinion, to only worry about rotation in your training. If you only train rotation, you don't get good at training the other movements and how your core is designed to move. That is all I have to say about that for my soapbox. Now, last exercise in my quote warm-up, we've got the balance work here. This is just a basic single leg hinge with a rear delt fly. Building off of the back strength exercises that I have coming up, this is going to be the last exercise to get my back and shoulders fully warmed up and ready to go. But because of the instability with the balance training, I am getting tons of other benefits as well, which one of them is building foot strength. One of the most important things that you can do, in my oh so humble and correct, awesome opinion, it is one of the most important things that you can do for your health, your strength, and your movement. Let's look at it like this. So think about your feet. Each foot, you have 29 muscles in each foot. Multiply that by 2 because you got 2 feet. 58. We'll round up to 60. In the human body, we have 600 muscles in our body. So 60 into 600 is 0.1, which is 1/10. 1/10 of the muscles in your body are located in your foot. It is very stupid. Yes, I mean that. It's stupid to not treat your feet like other muscles in your body. All things being equal, if you trained all of the other 90% of your body, you would only be training at 90% capacity, which means you can't do plus ultra 100% full cowling if you only train 90% of your body. So, foot health aside, balance training, we also build unilateral strength in your legs and your hips, which leads to better control and strength in your body. While the rear delt fly is changing my center of gravity with each reps, forcing different muscles to engage and stabilize the joints so that I can maintain my position. All right, that is going to be it for the warm-up section. As you can see, there's a lot of different things and considerations, but each exercise is built with the goal in mind for what's coming up and feeding into what I have going on later into my training program. And each different section has its own specific purpose for the overall goal of being stronger and moving better. Now, the first section, or the first exercise in my strength training portion of my training, these are going to be crocodile rows. This is a total body exercise more than anything. The core training on this is a lot of anti-rotation. Core engagement is going to be massive. You're going to feel these everywhere. Everything from the leg that's planted onto the ground, into the quads, your glutes, your obliques, your abs, your chest, your shoulders into that tricep. Look at that tricep popping on those. So, yeah, I mean, you feel everything on this. And because of how unstable this position is, if you do want to try this exercise out, I would recommend starting with something like 40 to 50% of what your normal rowing weight would be, say like on a single arm row on a bench or on a rack row or something like that. That way you can get a feel for the exercise, because you only have 2 points of contact, making you have to use a bunch of core to be able to stay stable, not let those hips move or anything like that. If this version is too difficult for you and you would like to try to build up to it, or not try to build up to it, if you would like to build up to this exercise and want a modification for it, Renegade rows are going to be great. Renegade row is the exact same setup as this. The only difference is you have both feet on the ground. You're still going to get all the same benefits with the anti-rotation and everything. It's just going to be a little easier because you're more stable. For the Renegade row, I would recommend starting somewhere around 60 to 70% of your rowing weight, again on that single arm row or a rack row. Now, those aren't absolute figures, those are just my recommendations for good starting positions and points. You're obviously free to use whatever weight you want, should you decide to try it out. But again, that's just my 2 cents on what I have found to be good starting points to work on and build on as you do it. All right. It seems that I have spoken too fast. So let me break down this exercise for you here. So as I am engaging from here, the goal is to drive this heel flat on the ground on the planted leg, engaging my quads, my glutes. Quad stays engaged on the floating leg as well. So thinking a nice straight line from that floating ankle up into my ears, using my abs. Abs are really engaging, drawing in towards my spine. And yeah, that's how you want to set that up. So, little extra tidbit of what I wanted to talk on because I messed up. All right, so apologies about that. Let's get into rotation. Rotation. The thing that I just had a massive soapbox on, which, again, I do agree, very important. As you can see here, this is me incorporating rotation into my training. So, this is a perfect segue into our next topic, which, let's talk about planes of motion in training. You have 3 planes of motion where movement happens: the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, and the transverse plane. Sagittal movement, that occurs with exercises like a bicep curl, front delt raise, walking front lunges, deadlifts, exercises like that. Those are all occurring in the sagittal plane. And then you have the frontal plane, so this would be like side movement. So let's say lateral delt raises, lateral lunges, side bends, and lateral shuffles. Any movement that happens like that is going to be considered frontal plane movement. And then you have rotational, the transverse plane, that is going to be rotational movement. So things like this rotation row, yeah, or like cable wood chops, something like that. Okay, why am I bringing that up? Well, my experience, too many people only train in the sagittal plane with barely any frontal plane movement and even less transverse plane movement. A well-rounded training program is going to incorporate all planes of motion. The reasoning behind that is because certain muscles function best in the plane that they're designed to move in. So if you want to move well and master how you move, you have to move well through all movement, which involves training all of these planes of motion. If you don't train all the planes of motion, The muscles that are designed best to work in other planes of motion aren't going to be trained at their fullest potential, which is leaving a whole bunch of room on the table for y'all. So, very important to train all planes of motion. Reference in this video, the Superman planks, that would be a type of example of the sagittal plane movement. The IYTA holds is a variation of frontal plane movement, and then you have the rotation rows, which is covering transverse movement. So that is a lot of considerations for training, and that barely scratches the surface. These are just some of the things that I think of or that go through my head when I am designing training programs for myself and for my clients. And that doesn't even include the very specific stuff like muscular imbalances, movement imbalances, any injury history, training age. So a lot of other factors also go into play. This is just some of the basics that I wanted to share. And in future videos, I want to share more of that information with you. But for that, I'm going to say that this video is going to be about wrapped up, because my last exercise after these rotation rows, I have pull-ups. Pull-ups are amazing, and I failed miserably on these on my last set. So that's about all I want to say about that, with the exception of, for these, I did some wider pull-ups here for the first set, and then I switched to a more bicep heavy focus by using a different grip. So changing the grip that you use on pull-ups is going to emphasize different muscles based on the position. Okay, so now that's about all I got to say on that. If this was helpful, please drop a comment, let me know how it helped you, or if there's anything that you want to see in the future that I can improve on in future videos. Constructive feedback is very much welcomed. Very, very much welcomed. So thank you so much for checking this out, and I'll see y'all on the next one while you enjoy this final fail. All right, see y'all.